Good evening. Let me take a minute to welcome you all and say thank you for coming. Thanks for taking the time to come out and be a part of this with us this evening. This is a big and important day for our city. I know we all have been waiting for this, and I appreciate the fact that you've invested your time. We have enjoyed a long and productive afternoon, heard a lot of good stuff together. Mr. Dover brings so much to the table, and we're grateful to have him here with us. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Amy, and she will get us started on the evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'm Amy Groves with Dover Colin Partners, the project director for Lake Wales Envisioned. It's so great to see so many of you here tonight, and so many of you, I recognize some of the faces from this afternoon. So great that you're able to stay with us for the evening. So tonight we're going to just do some quick introductions from our team, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what Lake Wales Envisioned is. We're going to talk about the charrette schedule coming up in April, which will be a great opportunity to get involved and come and tell us your thoughts about the vision for the city. And give a little bit of background on some of the initial aspirations and the Olmsted legacy here in Lake Wales. And then we're going to take some time to hear from you. So we're going to do some polling questions and then questions and answers. And we really want to hear from folks here tonight, what are the top things on your mind? What do we need to be thinking about as we're kicking this project off? So with that, I'm going to introduce our team and our team members who are here in the room tonight. I may ask if you want to raise your hand, but Dover Colin Partners, I mentioned, is leading the effort, and myself and Victor and Eric and Steve are all in the room tonight, but we'll be bringing a larger team with us in April for the planning charrette, and we're town planners and urban designers. And with us, we're going to be working with Wade Walker from Kittleson, and Wade is in the corner over here. They're transportation experts, so all of your questions on transportation and street design should go find Wade in a corner of the room and ask him. And then we have Jay Exum, who is he's in the back of the room, an ecologist, and he's going to be helping us with the green network, the big green picture. So thinking about where conservation and thinking about the ecology of the city and all the environmental questions that are going to come our way as we're visioning for the future. And then finally, we don't have them in the room with us tonight, but they will be with us during the Charrette Week, the folks from Inspire Placemaking Collective, and they are going to be helping us. They worked on the city's parks master plan, and they're going to be helping us with the parks and open space plan, as well as the overall city visioning and helping with implementation strategy. So y'all may have spent some time in the lobby before coming in here, and we're looking at these maps. So Lake Wales Envisioned is going to be the city's plan and vision for the area within city limits, as well as the larger utility service area. So this is an area not in city limits today, but could potentially be annexed to the city in the future. So we're wanting to think about how that could happen. What should development in the area look like? But we're not just looking at that area, we're really looking at the two together. It's really a large area. Over 55,000 acres is shown highlighted on this map. So there's 12,000 in city limits, another 40-some thousand in the utility service area. So this is really like a regional visioning effort that we're doing. And all these maps, it's hard to see on the screen here tonight, but they are in the lobby. And after we adjourn tonight, we can go out, and if y'all have questions, ask me. We're just at beginning stages of doing analysis and base mapping. We'll have a lot more during the Charrette Week to share with you and explore. So if you haven't yet, you should go to lakewalesenvision.com. So this is our project hub of information for everything about Lake Wales Envision. You can learn more about what the project's about. You can learn about upcoming events and any meetings that we have. We had the symposium this afternoon. We'll had that recorded. Those videos will be up on the website for anyone who missed it, or if you did come, if you want to tell your neighbors about it, so they can watch. Please share the website. And as we produce more things over the coming months, it'll be posted on the website. It'll be a great way to stay involved and give us your thoughts and questions along the way. So this afternoon, I mentioned the symposium. We went a little over. We spent about 3.5 hours. But we wanted to do a deep dive into, some of the best practices that could apply here in the city. As we're kicking the project off, thinking about how the city could grow, how it could think about conservation, the green network. And so I did mention all of those recordings will be up on the website a little later this week as soon as we can get them processed and uploaded. So if you didn't get a chance, if you want to go and watch, we wanted to do this as a way to start the project off, just as a way of giving some inspiration and food for thought for people to be thinking about as we're heading into the charrette events. Some additional food for thought that's on the website is a lecture by Bruce Stevenson. So he actually gave a lecture here at Bok Tower, I believe it was in January, about Olmsted and John Nolan and their history of planning in the area. So if you haven't had a chance to watch that, we're going to give a quick overview tonight, but that's a longer and more in-depth presentation is available at the Lake Wales Envisioned website. So looking ahead at some of the upcoming events I'm going to talk about after tonight, ways to get involved. So, during the symposium, we talked a lot about development and what development could look like, and we had a few developers on our panel talking about their experiences. But we wanted to bring an economist's point of view into the picture as well. And so if you don't know him yet, you can Google him, Joe Minicozy. He's one of the top urban economists, and he has a really unique way of looking at the land development and what that value that brings to the city. And so he is going to be doing a Zoom webinar on Wednesday, March 29th from 6 to 7. So you can register on the Lake Wales Envisioned website, but hope that many of you are able to log in and join us that night. And just to give you a preview of some of the things that his firm, Urban 3, looks at, here is this map is showing actually Charleston, South Carolina, and each of those spikes on the map represents land value. And so the taller the spikes, the more valuable that land is. The more tax revenue it produces. And you can see, obviously, downtown Charleston, very tall spikes. You can see all along the waterfront, that's the water's edge. You can see there also very tall spikes. As you get into the residential neighborhoods, they tend to be lower spikes. There's not as much commercial lands, and so and even some gray areas that don't have as high a value. But there's one area there that you can see is kind of an anomaly. It's amongst the residential neighborhoods, but there are very tall spikes there. And curious, why is that area generating so much value compared to its neighbors? And actually, that's the neighborhood of Ion in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. So you can see this is neighborhood particularly. Vince Graham, who's in the audience here tonight, is the founder, and he presented a bit earlier today about Ion. And there's a very strong emphasis on sense of place, how buildings relate to the street, having street trees, and just there's a very design-focused effort that went into designing this neighborhood, and that's actually reflected when you look at the property values or the tax revenue, the taxable land value per acre. That's what these spikes represent. So if you're interested in seeing more graphs and information like that, you can tune in to Joe's webinar next Wednesday. So the Charrette Week. Yes. What is a charrette? So a charrette is we're going to have a week of focused design sessions, and we're going to bring our whole team here to work with the community and experts and trying to get input and your vision for the future. And we have a number of different ways to do that. But the idea is to have a focused effort over a short period of time where we hope to learn a lot from everyone here in the room and everyone else who comes to these meetings. And from that week, really, solidify what some of the core big ideas for the city's future should be. So this is a kind of a snapshot of some of the bigger public events. I'm gonna walk through those here, but the idea is every day there'll be something new. You don't have to come every day, but every day there'll be an opportunity and a different way to get involved.
Amy, can I just, if you don't mind, just let me do a quick shout out for some folks who are helping in a big way. The city's arranged for us to use the James P. Austin Community Center for the Saturday morning hands-on session. The night before, Lake Wales Main Street has arranged a tent for us to be part of the wine walk event, and we'll be doing a kind of kickoff reception for the week. That's a time to come back and catch up on all that's begun to occur between now and then. But when we get to the open planning studio, which Amy will describe, we have to say thank you to Pete Weber for arranging space for us right on one of Lake Wales Main Streets on Stewart Avenue to produce a on-location pop-up design studio. And then later in the week at the Work in Progress presentation, the Arts Council has arranged for us to use the Art Center Auditorium, and which is one of those beautiful spaces. And I hope it will be inspiring to be in that room when we all look up on the screen and show you things and ask, is this what you meant?
So yeah, and all of these details are on the website. So again, if you don't have, and we have some flyers outside, but if you don't have to worry about writing them all down, but that's where you can find out more. The opening reception, this will be Friday night. As Victor mentioned, we're picturing this under a tent out by the Citrus Mural downtown. And this is really just an opportunity to meet with our team, and we'll be there to talk about the upcoming week. We'll have our maps out and want to just talk with you about what the week ahead holds and what you want to see in the future. And it's a great opportunity to see downtown and stop by and talk with us. So the next morning is really one of the most important sessions of the week, and we call it the hands-on design session. So it's Saturday morning from 9 to 12, as Victor mentioned, at the Austin Center. And this is where we're going to roll base maps out on every table, and we're going to talk with you all and work through the maps and have you help to circle and mark them up and tell us where there's opportunities, where your concerns are, what you hope to see for the future. And so that from that group brainstorming session, really we get lots of great information that we'll then use to create the plan. So if you can just come to one event during the week, come to this event on Saturday morning, and please help encourage your friends and neighbors to come as well. So then after that morning session, we'll set up an open planning studio. So our team, I mentioned we're going to stay here for the week. We take all the ideas from that hands-on session and we work towards, synthesizing them into, onto maps and creating drawings, taking all the words, creating illustrations. And while we're doing that, we'll keep the door open. So if any of you want to come and drop in and see what we're doing, that's what these studio hours are for. So again, Sunday from 12 to 6 on Stewart Avenue, and then Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 9 in the morning till 6 at night. So again, you don't have to come every hour, but if you have a half hour at lunch or 30 minutes in the morning, you want to just drop in and see what we've been doing so far and tell us what you think about it, we welcome you to do that.
And the old rule of thumb for that is if you bring cookies and brownies, you get more of your ideas in the final plan. I'm only kidding. Don't do that. That was just a joke.
So we wanted to give an opportunity also for online participation, because we know that that's become obviously more popular for folks with kids or just busy lives. It's maybe a little more convenient to log into a Zoom meeting. So if you can't make it on Saturday, we're going to repeat that exercise in Zoom over Google Maps. So it'll be another brainstorming session, and it's Monday night, April 17th, from 6 to 8.
Well, let me say the virtual version will be great, but not as good. So treat it as a makeup or a backup, but be there in person for the live in-person event if you possibly can. If you have a choice to do either, do Saturday morning.
And then finally, on Thursday, April 20th, from 6 to 8, we have what we call our work in progress review. So we're going to be drawing all week, and this is our opportunity that we'll take Thursday to get everything scanned and photographed and into the computer, and we'll present it on Thursday night. So it's not going to be a final plan, it's not going to be finished, but it's going to be everything that we've gotten done so far. And we're going to ask what we got right and what we still need to work on. So again, another great opportunity to get caught up if you couldn't come earlier in the week, to come to that meeting and see what we have so far. So we do have some initial aspirations that we're working towards, and I don't know if you all have a copy of this. They were on the sign-in tables. We have more if you want to pick one up on the way out, but I'm going to ask Victor to come up and share a bit more about what these aspirations are and how we're working with them.
Thank you, Amy. You know, the city commission is like the board of directors for the city, but your city manager and his staff in all the various departments, including planning, they report to that board of directors. And so what the city commission does is sets broad policy. And in this moment, there are some big policies in the balance. You know, important public business that you all are considering, projects that have been proposed for approval that are in some kind of application for development approval of one kind or another. Potential zoning matters like rezoning or planned unit developments or variances, things like that. And those are heard by your planning board and reviewed by your staff and then brought eventually for the projects that require it or the cases that require it, brought to your city commission. And it was clear when we started this that we know when we come out the other end of this process, however difficult it turns out to be working together, that we're probably going to show up in front of your city commission, your city manager's board of directors, and recommend changes to the way of doing things. Maybe some will be easy changes, and some will be hard. Probably changes to your comprehensive plan or upgrades to your land development regulations. And those will be the controversial ones. Maybe budget items, priorities for acquisition of conservation land, things like that. Big, big decisions. And so what about in the meantime? Was the question we were asked. And so where we landed, knowing that there will be a hopefully calm community conversation, all adults, right, about these emotionally charged issues related to land development, that there will certainly, everybody will get something that they want, and nobody will get everything that they want as those things are worked out. We, as your consultants, will show up at the end and slide things across the counter at your city commission and your city manager and your planning director and say, what we have here represents, to the best of our ability, a synthesis of all the things we learned through this public engagement process or advisable, and all the things we can't help noticing ourselves as consultants or experts. So in the end, we have to be able to take that synthesis and say, this is our best recommendation to you as your consultants about what to do. And you know what? Some of that will get adopted and not all of it will, because some of it, that's just the way this process works. So what about the meantime? Your city commission passed a resolution, and it's very broadly worded to give direction to the city staff about what to do in the meantime. And it lays out these 8 simple aspirations about what we think we are trying to achieve. And these will be refined, and maybe some will be cut and others added to, or a new one's added as we go along through this process. Think of it like a first draft of the Bill of Rights, not the whole Constitution. Okay? And it includes some things we're going to look at in more detail here. But the idea is that your city staff has been asked by the commission to expedite decision-making, projects, applications, things like that clearly conform with these aspirations. And to take a pause and go slow and think hard and be very deliberating on anything that might be in contravention to these. That means going back to an applicant and saying, do you really want to rush to get to a final hearing and get a vote up or down on your project right now, or do you want to let this process mature a little bit so we can see what the sense of the community will be, what they might or might not support? And so that's a very delicate thing for your city staff to be asked to do. So hats off to the city staff who are willing to take that on and serve as kind of the front lines in these big decisions. At the same time, the lawyers in the room know that there's such a thing as due process under the law, and that people can't be unduly delayed for any kind of indefinite amount of time. So this doesn't represent anything, at least not for now, as hard or legally thorny as a moratorium. It's an attempt to take a more collaborative approach. I'm not saying that they wouldn't eventually want to reconsider that, but at the moment, it seems productive to lay these things out there and turn to the applicants for various projects or turn to the budget makers and decisions and say, why don't we look at these through this new screen? So I'll just give you a couple of examples. Those of you who were with us this afternoon heard a lot about this in the final session. Number one at the top of that list says, we will seek to assemble an enduring green network of open spaces and conservation land. Right now there are county maps and there are conservancy maps and land trust maps and state maps that give a hint as to where land either already is protected. For example, for its environmental benefits, but we are absent a map that is the city's statement about what it's trying to achieve as it goes about protecting undeveloped land or restoring sensitive, ecologically important landscapes. So, well, y'all probably voted in November, and you know your county voted funding for certain kinds of conservation land, open space acquisition. I didn't do anything. That wasn't me. Thank you, Amy. You know what the secret is? Okay. Well, see, I told you there was a ghost at Bok Tower. I didn't touch it. So money will be spent. Taxpayer money will be spent in coming years based on that referendum being passed back in November. How does Lake Wales want its share of that county funding to be spent on Lake Wales priorities? This is the kind of question we can answer with this one. And that's pretty darn important, and partly because your history is that the founders of the town, even the surveyors and railroad supervisors, and before the fancy folks from Boston, the Olmsted brothers, showed up to take it even farther, they marked out enormous swaths of the core of the original settlement for public space. You know, all that lakefront park. You need to go to your peer communities and realize you have a lot more of that than comparable communities do, even ones from the same time period when park systems were just emerging as an idea in America. And the Green Network also includes agriculture. Part of your scenic backdrop is in these beautiful rolling citrus groves and in pine lands and so on. And about that, we all need to confront the reality of a struggling citrus industry in steep decline, facing its own pandemic of greening. And there's uncertainty related to these beautiful landscapes that your neighbors have owned for a long time and have been iconic for this place, but may not be sustainable as businesses to the same degree that they once were, or in the long term. Hopefully, solutions to the latest crisis will be found, but in the past it was canker and freezes before it was greening. So this is an ongoing set of challenges. When we go up in the air, we realize that a parcel here and a parcel there, sometimes on both sides of the road, that's over on 17, in the southern part of our study area, they're being transformed. So even as we work to get the maps done and catch up on this vision-making stuff, development's happening, change is occurring in the landscape. So that means every month we wait to do this visioning process and think about where that enduring green network needs to be, is more has changed. The canvas we're painting on is changing as we speak. Number 6 on that list of 8 aspirations says, in one of my more grammatically challenged sentences ever, sorry, I need some commas here. We will seek to make traditional neighborhoods with walkable connected streets, comma, that create a high quality public realm, comma, the norm. Right now, you have those kinds of neighborhoods in the historic parts of town. You're not getting them in the newly developed parts of town. Then they're far from the norm. So why is that, and what might be done? I thought just a minute on what we mean by traditional neighborhoods. It's the front porch culture kind of neighborhoods where you have tree-lined streets, and the fronts of houses face the public spaces. And those traditional neighborhoods, whether they're new or old, still have all the technical requirements met, like they handle stormwater and handle parking and fire trucks and all those things. But the built environment itself between the homes adds value to the neighborhood. And of course, it isn't just houses. It's also the commercial areas. In the best traditional neighborhoods, you might even have some place to get a popsicle within walking distance of your home, or a short bike, or a short car trip without going out on the regional road network. Speaking about when you do leave the neighborhoods and you go out on the road network, the best traditional neighborhoods don't turn their backs on the corridors you all use. They're basically shared spaces. You might think of it as an old rural road that now grew one last crop of houses. But what happens when the land is laid out is you either do or don't face these important public spaces with the fronts of buildings and with green spaces. And when you face them with the backs, you get this kind of disappointing environment. So that's just a prelim of what some of those aspirations are, and I thought it might be worth a minute or two to talk about what we mean by the tagline, Olmsted City in 10, 25, and 50 years. Frederick Law Olmsted Jr., the son of the most famous landscape architect in American history, and his brother had a firm called the Olmsted Brothers. They designed Bok Tower Gardens and Mountain Lake Estates, and they were anonymously hired by Edward Bok to do a plan for the city of Lake Wales. They planned the position or the planting of street trees, for example, and in a couple of locations, how the street network should be extended, where Scenic Highway is routed, or where Druid Hills neighborhood up on the top of the hill overlooking the lake is located. And they had a philosophy which they brought to this landscape, which is unique and was really new for its time. And that was, yes, neighborhood, yes, settlement, but it could be greener than any industrialized city from the north, or any suburban sprawl, which is already beginning to occur in the 1920s. And so the Garden City movement was an inspiration for them, and the shorthand is that their idea was that the city should rise out of a garden on the ridge, and they felt Lake Wales had a unique opportunity for that. Olmsted, see the name all over the building. This is the 200th anniversary of the birth of Frederick Law Olmsted Sr., father of landscape architecture in America, and much more. And he designed things like Central Park in New York and Prospect Park in Brooklyn. In Boston, he had this enduring green network idea and drew something they call the Emerald Necklace. It's the inspiration, if you've been following the headlines, for the Emerald and Sapphire necklace proposed in Winter Haven, just next door, the One Water chain of lakes plan. So Olmsted had a lot of ideas for the academics. You can read a lot about it, but he operated in landscape architecture and city planning at a time when city planning was all about public health. And he wanted us as citizens to enjoy a more healthful and more democratic place. And those public spaces, they were about being available to everybody, not just to the wealthiest who might live in a gated community or in a private estate and have a private pleasure garden. He wanted everyone to be able to enjoy these places. The most important one of his many rules was one he called subordination. In shorthand, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. It was that there's no one element in the design of a town or a landscape or a garden or a park that should outclass all of the others and be more important than the others. But really, they all go together in an ensemble. And so we bring that philosophy into city planning. We can't just work on the real estate development or the transportation plan or the parks plan or the plan for sanitary sewer or economic development. We have to do all those things at one time. Okay. Now, his son, Frederick Law Olmsted Jr., loved this place. And he made a couple of statements about it that are really important. One is that other places in the state have the characteristics we find in Lake Wales, but none better. Another item he said was that this is the place to make a systematic effort to conserve and develop the landscape beauty of a tract to its fullest extent in connection with its economic development. So this means starting with the green parts. The Olmsteds left us this inheritance, which is that they said the beauty is the thing that will last. And there's, of course, the motto of the city, and Edward Bok's famous slogan is all about this. So they lived at a time when it was in the tail end of the City Beautiful movement, if you read about the history of planning and architecture, in which they were making the case that beauty was not something extra, that design was not something extra to add in at the end, after all the other decisions were made by the lawyers and the engineers, but rather it was the thing that you were selling. And I do believe that when we move around the Lake Wales you've inherited, and we look at some of the amazing works of great old architecture, and we look at the humble homes that had that front porch culture, even in the simplest of shelters, and we look at the plans that those inspired by the Olmsteds drew to do things like plant all those beautiful oak trees at Lake Wales Park, their idea permeated planning in this place. For those of you who know her, Alexis Winters Wareham, when she was a graduate student, found a lot of these old maps, and she pulled microfilms and old maps and stitched them together and brought back out for everyone to see the Olmsted's plan for tree planting, for example. When it came time to do your plan for downtown and the Northwest neighborhood, the revitalization plan for the core of town, we tried to take inspiration from those discoveries, and we made a series of before and after pictures. No, now we have to zoom out, and just like we did for Lincoln Avenue, close up, thinking about before and after, what this place could be, we need to zoom out and think before and after for the larger study area of Lake Wales Envisioned. So for those who don't know about it, Lake Wales Connected is the name of the plan for the downtown that came out of that effort. You can go onto the website and see that. There's a little bit of this Olmsted history there. Thanks for indulging me with retelling the story, because can you tell I'm in love with Lake Wales? I can't get enough chances to talk about it. Amy, let's hear from them.
Great. We're actually going to do some polling questions. So I have Eric and Steve pass out the polling devices, and I'm going to switch over.
Now, what you need to know about these questions is that this is a little bit like the SAT. You remember taking the SAT exam? The questions start off really easy, and then they get harder. And the last one is the hardest one tonight, and we may ask you some more later on. We also sometimes do this with smartphones, but since everybody's cell carrier doesn't necessarily have a good signal up here on the top of Iron Mountain, we're going back to the good old-fashioned keypads. Make sure that you leave your keypads with us at the door at the end. I don't know, lost keypads aren't a reimbursable expense, are they, Mr. Slayton? So don't take them home. I told you the questions start pretty easy.
All right, it's finally working. Okay, so
Hey, Amy.
yes.
Use a microphone so the recording can pick you up.
Yep. Okay, so our first question tonight, and so they start easy, like Victor said, so you can get used to using the polling, but you press the number for your answer. Do you live or work in the city of Lake Wales? So press 1 for live, 2 for work, 3 for both, or 4 for neither. And if you press the wrong one, just press the right one. Whatever you press last is the one that it's going to register. And I see responses are coming in, so it's
You don't
working.
have to press go. Just press the number, and you're good to go. And all of them have fresh batteries. We tested them this week.
Okay, so we're going to just give 1 or 2 more seconds, and then we'll, actually, I'm going to go ahead and do a countdown. So 8 seconds. If you haven't pressed it yet, press your answer. And we'll see how this...
Did we have enough keypads for everyone? Great.
Okay. And so, little blur to the title, but so we have 32% who live here, 18% work, 24 both, and 25 neither. So that's interesting. A good mix. So the next question. So this next question deals with the map. So if you haven't had a chance to study the map yet, you can skip this question. But we're curious if you looked at the map coming in, or if you are familiar with the city limits and the service area. So do you live or work within either the city limits or the larger utility service area? So again, the answers are the same. 1 is live, 2 work, 3 both, and 4 neither. And I'm going to do the countdown. So 7 seconds. Okay, and here's the answers. So we have 40% live, 8% work, 40% both. Interesting. And 11% neither. Okay, so if you lived or worked, so for the 11% who was neither, we need to sit this one out, but for the rest of you, how long have you been here? So 1 is less than 5 years, 2, 6 to 10 years, 3, 11 to 20 years, 4 is more than 20 years, and 5 is, oh, actually, so if the 11% should be 5. Let's see if that checks out.
Well, we're about to find out, aren't we?
We're going to do a countdown. So 8 seconds.
And this is not a seems like. It seems like more than 20. This is the actual number.
Okay. Okay, so somehow we got 4%. We'll have to check those answers later. But it is interesting to see. We've
may
got
have some hanging chads
Yeah.
or undervotes, or dimpled chads.
so 33%, more than 20 years. That's interesting.
So hold that one for a second, Amy. Well, that's all right. We saw the result. That question is the one that gives us an insight to the combination of been heres and come heres. And there's always a challenge, sometimes conflict, sometimes open conflict between the been heres and the come heres. And we like to find out who we're talking to, because well, by the way, your polling is all anonymous, but we will be able to cross-reference the results. So if we ask you a question one way, and you answer it one way, and then we ask you another question later, we'll be able to see who answered the same on both or what have you. So this is where we find out how the come heres and the been heres get their information.
Yeah, we're curious to know what's been working best for outreach. So if you could help us, how did you hear about today's meeting? And maybe just pick the one you've heard the most. So 1 is for a flyer, 2 email, 3 social media, 4 news article, 5 is from a friend, neighbor, or community leader, and 6 is other. I'm going to start the countdown. So 5 seconds. Want to change your answer?
Louis, I know you have an enormous social media footprint, so all your friends found out what their answer was.
Wow, interesting. So lots of people heard from their friends, neighbors, and community leaders.
That is so powerful. We've done projects like this all over the country and for a long time. I think this is year 36 of since we started our company, and no two places are the same. But one of the indicators that we're in a good situation, primed for success, is when people are leaning over the fence and talking to their neighbor and saying, "You should come to this thing," or "You should check this out." Or let me tell you about this meeting I went to. So keep it up. The more you do that, it's so much more powerful than reading about it on Nextdoor or on Facebook. Just keep doing those things too, but talk to one another.
Okay, the next question is asking about how you typically move around in the study area today. So this is, within city limits as well as the larger utility service area. And how do you typically move around? So you have to pick one. Do you use a car, bus? 1 is car, 2 is bus, 3 is bike, 4 is walk, and 5 is other. Not sure what other is, but we'll start the countdown.
Unicycle or...
We'll probably get a couple others. Just 2 more seconds. Okay, so not surprising.
Not surprising at all.
96% car.
No, I'd like to ask a quick question. How many of you were wanting to be able to say more than one? Okay. So next time we ask this question, we're going to ask it again, probably in April, and we're going to give you a chance to choose more than one choice and just see how the results change as a result of that. And here's why.
Yeah, so here's one just to think about. So are there any of those car trips that you take that you would rather walk, bike, or use transit for if improved options were available? So 1 is probably yes, 2 is probably not, and 3 is not sure.
Amy, what do you mean by improved options?
So, for example, say that one of your car trips is going to take your kids to see their neighbor or see their friend, and you would rather be able to walk with them, but there's no sidewalk. So if there was a sidewalk, that would make it easier for you to make that trip. Or if you wanted to,
with shade trees.
right, if you wanted to ride your bike, but you felt that the road wasn't safe for bikes, so if it was improved for bikes, you'd do that. So that's what that means. And we're gonna start the countdown. So 8 seconds.
Have there been any surprises so far?
Here we go. So 73% probably yes, 23% probably not.
That's a pretty typical response, honestly, not just for Florida or Central Florida, but as we've asked that question many times, and that's a very typical response anywhere in America. So it seems like there's an appetite for replacing some of our shorter car trips. The vast majority of car trips are within a couple of miles of home. So there's an appetite for replacing some of them, but it doesn't feel safe. Maybe you're one of the people who are interested in walking or biking, but concerned about your safety, or some other obstacle is in the way. So as we dig deeper, we're going to learn about what those obstacles are and what might be done about them.
Okay,
All right, I told you they were going to get harder.
This is the last question, but is the longest, so I'm going to read through each of those. And we're wanting you to just pick one. So we know these are all important, but we're just curious for everyone here tonight, which of these is most important to you that we would address in the plan? So 1 is protecting the natural environment. 2 is parks and open spaces. 3, economic development. 4 is better or safer mobility choices. 5, more housing types. 6, neighborhood design. 7, promote infill and revitalization. 8, historic preservation. And 9 is other. So again, just pick the one that if you had to pick one that's most important to you.
Now, on a reality show, we would cut to a commercial. So you had to wait until after the commercial to find out the result. Don't give the result yet. I just want to say something for the elected officials that are still with us. We've got 3. What we're doing here with the keypads is not a representative sample, statistically valid sample poll of the electorate or anything like that. Far from it. It's a poll of a self-selected group of people who got the word from Robert or Lewis on social media and made time, gave up their weekday evening to come here and do this, which means we're skewed. Older, because we got other people who have kids who have homework tonight. And we're probably skewed other ways. Wealthier, whiter. So think about who's not in the room that's probably not getting to answer the question tonight. So the reason I point that out is first, so you'll take time, this is the commercial, so you'll take time between now and our events in April to think about whom you could recruit that maybe isn't exactly like you, that you could bring to a future meeting. Make that one-on-one contact and say, I think your mom would love this, or I think you should come to this meeting, or your teenager would get something out of participating, and bring them to our April events. Now, for those elected officials I was admonishing a minute ago, this is a representative sample of the sort of people who will give up a weekday night and go to a city commission meeting in the future when you're voting up or down on some decision that flows out of this process. So now, let's see what they said was most important.
I'm going to do the last 8 seconds. All right, and here we go. All right, so not
A lot of things are
surprisingly,
important.
lots of them are important. Interesting, so the natural environment is the top, along with economic development at 22. And then followed shortly by parks and open space, neighborhood design, and promote infill and revitalization. But not surprisingly, everything got at least a few answers. I'm curious, for anyone who said other, is there someone want to raise their hand and say what else you're thinking about? Yeah?
They're all important.
They are all important. So why do we even do this? It's so hard. We told you that we're going to get hard. So why do we do this if it's not representative? So that y'all can have a better conversation. So let's do it now. Who chose other? Anybody want to volunteer an example of another? So we don't miss it? Yes, sir?
Well, I addressed other, and I changed it. But the other is this, is that global climate change trumps everything.
Eric, you want to take
There's no economic development if we've got this problem of all three spaces are gone, and the ocean is rising, and we've got, I'll say it through the speaker. I think global climate change trumps everything. You can have all the economic development you want, but if you don't have the food, you don't have, if the buildings are being flooded by the ocean, it's for naught. And you can have all the pretty spaces, all the best housing, but again, global climate change trumps the whole thing.
Great example of another. Any other example of other that someone had in mind? All right, so what about someone who picked protecting the natural environment at the top, which was our top winner? Give me an example of what you meant or what came to mind when you pressed that button. Pete?
Just what he said, climate change.
Okay, Charlene says climate change. And you want to run over there? Thank you. We'll bring you the mic. Just hang on a second. Anybody else want to volunteer one? I'll bring your mic your way.
One of the reasons I love Lake Wales is the long, unobstructed views of our natural habitat, and that's what draws a lot of people here, and I think it warrants to number one.
All right.
So.
I voted for number one because of the lake, and if you maintain the lake quality, that's the heart and soul of Lake Wales.
Okay. Anybody else that chose protect the natural environment want to volunteer another? I'll bring it.
Okay, so at first I chose one and then I chose 4 because we do have a lot of natural resources, but our main resource here is human capital. It's the people who are here. And the first one doesn't really cover that. It doesn't cover the pollution that might affect the people in our environment when you're just focused on the rest of the beauty of Lake Wales. But I think our children are the most beautiful and most important thing to protect.
So that's a great example of both and, not either or. Thank you for adding that to the list. What's on your mind?
Trees, please. Trees, please.
Don't sugarcoat it. Tell me how you really feel. Trees? Okay. Eric?
One of the concerns I have is about increased rail safety, rail traffic, and what's going to be coming down those rails, especially in light of what's occurred in several areas throughout our country and what it's done to their environment.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's shift to the second one. Close, almost a tie. Economic development was next. Anyone who chose economic development want to volunteer what you meant when you pressed that button?
I will.
Okay.
If you don't have
John?
economic development, you can't pay the people to mow the parks and all the trees.
Could you repeat that for the recording? So we.
I said, if you don't have economic development, you won't be able to afford the people to mow the open spaces and make it beautiful.
Okay.
It's a tie between the two. I
Right.
wish I could have voted for both, one
Of
and
course.
three.
We knew this would be challenging to try and pick one that goes to the top. Anybody else that selected economic development want to talk to us about what you meant? Sue?
Unfortunately, with economic development, if you don't have it, your children will eventually leave here because they have to get a better job. There won't be the jobs here, and that allows for you not to be able to see your grandchildren. So it is important to keep them here, okay?
You see, it's just pressing one little button, and there's a lot in there. All right, Amy.
Great. Well, we've spent a lot of time today, talking. We had, a few hours this afternoon and some time today, but we are curious, I think that was a good conversation starter, that question, but what other things, are there other things that are, rising to the top that you want to make sure we know about or we think about as we're getting ready for the charrette next month? I'm curious, are there other things?
And
Yes?
Steve, you want to take a mic too, so you all can work both sides of the room? Eric will be right with you, sir. Here you go. Remember the Oprah rule, never let go of the microphone.
Right, Steve, right here in the front?
Okay, Amy, we have one right back here.
Oh, we're going to go here first and then here. That's
Thank you. I have spoken before the city commission on this, and so most of you may not have heard about this, but I will speak about parks. The city has, several parks scattered, but most of them are in the central part of the town. Down at Lake, the handicap park, and there's another one down on the lake. There's a gross deficiency for park in the southeast corner of town down there. The city owns about 4 acres that's at the end of Druid Street up there that they've been mowing for years and years and years, and it is a perfect spot location for another city park. And it's going to be already incorporated in the trail system that's under construction now. So the trail system would lead to that park. That quadrant of town would have a park. The city owns the property, so I see no reason that another park, playground with a pavilion for picnics and stuff and family. And if you've never been up there, just go at the end of Druid Circle. There's a Druid Street. There's a Druid Circle down there. And just another block east, there's that property. And you need to go look at it because it is a beautiful piece of property, undeveloped, and it can be a wonderful park for the city.
Thank you. We have a question in the back.
Yeah, I chose neighborhood design,
Okay.
specifically with the picture you showed of the Lincoln Avenue part there, connected. Because that neighborhood has never gone through any sort of planning. It has been forgotten when it comes down to planning in Lake Wales. And just west of that, the only planning that was done there, that was where Lake Wales dumped its industrial waste in that neighborhood. No planning, ever. And I'm just interested to know what role that neighborhood is going to play in the uplifting of Lake Wales, because it's never been considered before.
James, would you like to comment on Lake Wales Connected in the Northwest neighborhood component of it and what y'all are involved in there? Do you mind? Well, just come up to the mic and introduce yourself. Thank you, sir.
James Slayton, City Manager. No, that's okay. That's okay. I don't have my list in front of me, but where's the gentleman that asked the question? We've been investing millions of dollars in the Northwest neighborhood just over the last few years, 2.5 years or so. It's undergoing a zoning study as we speak. I think Victor Dover and his team are performing that. We're building affordable housing, providing business incentives. We've received a grant and have designed pedestrian improvements. We're installing new sidewalks. Construction for those will begin this year. Street trees and other beautification efforts are going on in the Northwest right now.
How have you been getting that word to the public?
Well,
or what your plans are and what you've done?
So we have several means to get the communication out, get information out to the public. We hired a marketing and engagement officer. Do you want to talk about this, Eric, a little bit? We've got a quarterly newsletter, video news station.
Hi, everybody. My name is Eric Marshall. I'm the Marketing and Communications Director for the City of Lake Wales. We've got all kinds of different communication platforms out there. We've got social media, which includes Facebook, Nextdoor, Twitter, Instagram, our website. We also have a digital newsletter that you could subscribe to on our website. It's at the top portion. All you do is simply go on there, select the link, apply, and then we'll start sending it to your email inbox. And then we also have a print newsletter that goes out to all the residents within the city limits. So can I ask everybody here, how many residents are actually in the city limits? Okay. And then how many are not? Great. So if you're interested in more about what's going on within the city, go to our website, select that link, and then you can plug in your email address to receive our digital version of the newsletter.
What's your email address?
Our website address is lakewalesfl.gov. All right, thanks.
You ever think about having a town hall in that part of the city?
It's a great idea. When the Lake Wales Connected plan was done, there were these digital tools and things that Eric and James were talking about. But what I remember, and Commissioner Howell, you might help us remember, was a lot of one-on-one conversation, a lot of small group meeting and walking. And you led a tour through the neighborhood several times. People coming out on their front porch and talking to us. Is there anything you'd like to add about the Northwest and its role in this bigger picture? Because we are trying to say, this is not like the design of a donut or a bagel where we're ignoring what's already in the middle of the hole, in the middle of the city. We're saying Lake Wales Envisioned is the whole thing. The existing neighborhoods, the historic places undergoing revitalization, and the potential for new development or change or conservation at the edges. And in between, you have these suburban strip commercial corridors, which I think you probably agree are not aging gracefully and need to rethink as well in the coming generation. So those are also in the mix for this process. And you think, if commissioners, is there anything you'd care to add to what we just said. Maybe you want Steve to bring you the mic there? Here you go, as soon as you climb up. Thank you, Terry. Well, that's true. She wants us to hear it. I know we'll hear it.
We have been doing things in the northwest section. This is it's not only part of the Lake Wales Connect, but it's also something that we have not done in Lake Wales in 50 years or more. And so what we're doing is trying to get people to give their opinion. And what they did maybe 3 years ago with Sarah, 2-3 years ago, just before the pandemic, they had people to come in. It was at Austin Center. People gave their likes and dislikes, what they needed or what they wanted. There and all over the city, people were there. And so that was written down, and we've been going through that. A lot of that was put in the Connect plan. They have also, they asked people during that time to have a group of people from the northwest section, and they did, and they put in things in the Connect plan that they thought would be better than what was proposed to be there. So hopefully we are the best things in the Lake Wales Connect plan that will help the northwest section and Lake Wales.
Excuse me. My only concern is, a good friend of mine, Paul the Apostle, used to say, I would not have you ignorant, brother. We need to know. I'm suggesting from all you've done, all the good work you've done, and all the good work that you plan to do, let's have a town hall and tell the people what the goal is, what the strategy is, what you've done. And then you're going to get so much cooperation you won't know what to do with it.
We're going to count on you to help us organize.
I'm there. Yeah.
Is there any other questions? One up here?
I think this is the section where you said general comments. Okay. The Lake Wales Envisioned plan goes all the way out and includes the utility service area. And that presumes that it would be applicable to the service area, but the largest portion of that is in the county. So I assume, Mr. City Manager, that we're working with the county to make sure that they are fully informed about this, and we want them to comply with the plans that we're making, because they're in charge of land use. We're just potentially there for utilities and potentially because of annexation, but today, not in reality.
Shonda, do you want to, as a member of the county government here today, do you want to say anything about the county's role in all this?
Hello, my name is Shonda Bennett, and I'm the Conference and Planning Administrator with Polk County. I've worked for Polk County for 28 years, so I've certainly seen a lot of the growth in the county and been part of the problem, so trying to be here part of the solution. Anyway, and I'll just take the opportunity. I think what the city's doing and what Mr. Dover's doing and his team is something I haven't really seen done in this county. Victor and his friends are kind of like planning superstars, I think, in our field. I'm serious here. So this is a really great opportunity. But the county's role certainly is to participate, give comments. I mean, I'm writing some lists down of some planning thoughts that I want the team to know about in terms of what happens in our county, and some of the growth could start in the county and come to the city. It's all how that gets worked out between the city and the county, and if they do any kind of interlocal agreements. because the growth is actually going to be connecting to the city's sewer and water, not the county, except by Babson Park. Because Babson Park, we do have a water utility service area in that area, but it's not within the boundaries of the service area. So I'm certainly here listening. I know our management is paying attention. They're interested, but they, don't want to butt in and take too many dominant role, although I can do that because I like to control things myself. But anyway, so.
Can we have a show of hands for Shonda to take back to her bosses? How many of us think Polk County government should be a robust, involved partner in this effort?
Okay.
You can tell them you saw a lot of hands.
A lot of hands, yes. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have time for just one or two more questions. We'll do one from over here and one from over there.
I think what we're doing here is really, really important, and I can't tell you how proud I am of Lake Wales for taking on the lead for doing this. As I think about what my personal ultimate desire would be, it would be to actually go further. And what I mean by that is I would love for places like Dundee and Waverly and Highland Park and Babson Park and Frostproof to all have similar values and processes and procedures to do what we're hoping to get done here. I have no idea how to get them involved, but I kind of have a goal of saving the ridge. It is Lake Wales for sure, but it goes beyond Lake Wales to save the view sheds. I don't know how many people here, when I was a young man, I used to drive through Claremont, and it was wonderful, beautiful rolling hills. Now I see wonderful, beautiful rolling rooftops, and it's a completely different experience. And so as I think about the grander plan for me personally, it would be to expand that vision from not just Lake Wales, but connecting us to the cities on the ridge and be able to save that entire viewshed. So, thank you.
Hi, just as we're thinking about the really tough thing between environment and industry and development and having the funds to do all the things we want to do, I just want to bring up a historical context that isn't Olmsted, if that's okay. So I was knocked out of my chair once because I was reading an old Life magazine, and it was from the 60s, and it listed the 10 most polluted areas in the United States. And Polk County was number 4 for having the worst air pollution. And so, it was the kind of pollution where women would hang their nylons on the clotheslines and they would get holes in them from the sulfuric acid that was in the air from the phosphate mines before the phosphate mines were forced to clean up. And people went to the doctor every week with the same recurring coughs and the same illnesses. And what I think is useful to us from that information that happened, so long ago, not that long ago, is that it was a whole group, a lot of citizen organizations that insisted that there should be clean air. But it was also the agricultural industry that had the final word and that really made sure that we have the clean air that we have today, because the hibiscus crops were being ruined, cows were ill, the beef industry was having a really hard time with the amount of air pollution that was here. And I'm really worried that as agriculture leaves our community, in whatever form it is, that we won't have that alliance that insists on clean air and clean water for the next generation. So I wanted to give you the hopeful story, but also add that piece of context to think about.
Eric, we have one last comment down front.
I just wanted to echo a couple of other speakers who said that how important it is to connect to other cities and the county and incorporate the county, draw them into this program, because it's absolutely essential. We have not had any real representation on the county commission in a long, long time. I'm personally aware of that. We are the forgotten stepchild frankly, of Polk County in a lot of ways, that we don't have a county park to speak of. The county regional parks are far from here. We are generally ignored. That's why we have a charter school system, because the school system was ignored. It's the same problem. And so if we don't speak up and rock the boat as a community, we will continue to be ignored. And getting the county commission and the school board, for that matter, involved in our community and the things we need is the only defense that we have in that area. The county is already, and Shonda's very aware of this, approving developments in the surrounding areas of the county, be it Babson Park area or Lake Pierce area. They're approving developments that we have no voice in to speak of. And this plan is the best defense because it reaches out into the county and it's at least going to protect our own area. At least we can try to steer what happens outside the city boundaries through this process. And it's really critical, and I'm really grateful that everybody's participating in this, especially for you, Victor. Thank you.
David, you opened the doors of your house at Bok Tower Gardens today for a whole day of time, and there was this enormous investment of time and energy and money by Bok Tower Gardens to host this today. So first, let's thank David. Do you have any parting words? Do you want to do the benediction? Closing remarks.
Well, this is a great start to a great plan, and everybody needs to be involved. It's no accident that Lake Wales is a charming place. Lake Wales was built on a good plan, and we need to have a good plan for our future. So we're doing this for ourselves, but we're also doing this for our children. So thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you, Victor, for you and your staff, and thank you for the city for bringing Victor on this project. Our hopes of Lake Wales are on you all.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you.